Hi, welcome back to my channel. We've got a lot of interesting news going on, a lot of good things going on. As you can see, my portfolio value is just about $3,800. Did go ahead and invest another $50, which means I'm in it for $3,400 right now. But we'll go ahead and see what my portfolio has done, and then we'll talk about the stock that just keeps growing. So as we can see on the week, I am up just a slight amount, but we can see a downward trend there. Over the past month, up 4%. Over the last 3 months, we have this really weird glitch going on saying I'm up almost 1,000%. I wish, just ignore this graph, it's not correct. Over the past 1 year, I am up 11%. Over the past all time, I'm sorry, that's a little odd. As we can see, another glitch here going on with Robinhood. It's been a little glitchy lately, I'm not sure exactly why. But if we do zoom out to all time now, we can see that I'm up 11.65%, which is awesome to see. I'm going to go ahead and pause right here and say, if you enjoy this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course share with a friend and let me know what you'd like to see next. Just ask and you shall receive. As you can see, someone wanted an update on what I ended up doing with Barstool Sports, and of course we're going to talk about that right now. So I did make a couple purchases this last week, a couple changes to portfolio. I did sell both my shares of Nintendo for about $95. And then I purchased $25 worth of Bitcoin, as you can see right here, for $10,191.69. Gave me 0.00245 Bitcoins. Then I did go ahead and buy one share of Penn for $38.13. And I bought one share of Realty Income, which goes by O on the stock market, for $79.02. So that's the movement in my portfolio this week, the changes that I've made. And of course, I'll keep you updated on all of those different things. So we'll be quick this week and talk about as much as we can. So SPHD, of course, I have not been super happy with the performance of this one. It is up $11, return of 2.4%. And as I've said in the past, does pay a pretty high dividend. But as we can see over the past year, it's only up 3.61%. And as we know, the stock market as a whole was up like 30% last year, so not good to see. Vivint Solar just keeps rolling. This has been a terrific one for me, and of course, I'm going to continue buying this. By far my biggest return, up $176 on this all time, or 59%, trading at just about $11 right now. As we'll see, up 9% on the week, 25% on the month, 65 for 3 months, and over the past year, up 122%. It's when we start zooming out to the past 5 years, we can see this large drop off, and slowly it has inched its way upwards. Of course, if I could have bought there at $2, that would have been terrific. We're going to talk about Microsoft, skip around here, and talk about why this is the stock to buy right now. 91% buy rating on Robinhood, which I've talked about in previous videos. I'm up almost 52% on this now. I'm up 51% on Microsoft all time, and it just keeps inching its way upwards. So as you can see, up 1% on the week. Over the past 3 months, up 25%. Over the past year, up 74%. And over the past 5 years, 326%. If we go ahead and look at some of the bigger details here, we can see, of course, like I said, 91% buy rating, 0% sell rating, which is a big one, and consistently good earnings, and earnings that are in fact growing every single quarter. But I have an article pulled up that talks about why it's still a good buy despite all this growth. So here it's titled 3 Reasons Microsoft Has More Growth Ahead of It. And I think the biggest reason is the first one they talk about. They say Microsoft shares are surging, but there's room for more upside. It's not only the cloud business that's driving the growth. That's absolutely true, but as I've mentioned in the past, the cloud business is their bread and butter. That's where they're making the vast majority of their money, and it's true of a lot of different tech companies right now. So they say Microsoft is up 15% in 2020 alone. Very true. They said coming off 55% gain in 2019, and this now gives them a capitalization of more than $1 trillion. Another article I read this morning actually says that they opened up the market at about $1.4 trillion valuation, and actually opened up as the largest company, slightly ahead of Apple this morning. Not super relevant to this topic, but definitely something to think about. So here they have the cloud business is on fire. So they said, take Microsoft Cloud business for starters. Its Azure Cloud has been driving significant growth for the company. In fiscal Q2, Azure revenue jumped 62%. That is incredible. When you're talking about such a large part of their business and where they're making the vast majority of their money, when you have revenue jumping that much, it's insane. Here they say that a lot of it had to do with the $10 billion Pentagon contract Microsoft inked during the quarter. Of course, here they do go ahead and talk about that contract being contested by Amazon. That's been blocked by a judge, and there's a lot going on with that. But my gut and everything that I've read said that in all likelihood, Microsoft will probably continue with that contract. Certainly with the Pentagon, that could be a huge one. Anytime you have government deals, that can work out very well. They talk about another customer being Salesforce, so they're trying to drive more growth for their cloud services. It says Microsoft is still a small player when compared to AWS, but it's slowly, methodically closing the gap. As I've talked about previously, Microsoft is the number 2 player in that industry, in the cloud industry, but Amazon is way ahead of them in terms of the cloud stuff. But of course, in the future, this could be a huge one. So number 2, they say dual screen devices are on the horizon. This one is not as big a selling point for me. I just don't think that Microsoft has as much room to grow in the hardware side of things. And we've seen in the past that sometimes their hardware isn't great, or it doesn't drive very good sales, quite honestly. So they said this week Samsung rolled out the Galaxy Z flip phone, which is a foldable phone that closes like an old school flip phone, but opens into a full phone with 6.7-inch OLED display. This is the more important part. They say that this research firm predicts there will be 30 million foldable phones in the market by 2023, accounting for 5% of the high-end mobile phone market. I'm not sure this is going to be a huge one for them, but I could be wrong. So definitely something else to look out for. And they say a shift for quality. This is another interesting one. They talk about the fact that there's a ton of companies in China that are really on the lower end, that are looking for more budget stuff, and that could be a way for success. But certainly because Microsoft is going for the higher quality stuff and they're not going for the sales style of brick and mortar chains, they haven't been as affected, especially by coronavirus, as some of these other companies have. So here they say Microsoft's productivity and business processes and intelligent cloud units were $22 billion combined in the second quarter compared to $11 billion for its personal computing unit. Investors seeking a position in technology stock but who can't stomach the risk may flock to Microsoft, driving up the price further. Again, this is exactly what I was saying. Not nearly as much risk with Microsoft as some of these other companies, but there's a lot of upside, and I'm just not sure that they're done. I've talked about in the past Tesla being an incredibly speculative stock, and I think Microsoft would actually be the opposite of that. There's not a whole lot of speculation here. You know exactly what you're getting, and we know pretty much what they're valued at, and I think it's a great pick. Continuing to move down, Agilent has been kind of downward over the past couple months, but not a ton, and I have made quite a bit of money on that. Pfizer, we will go ahead and take a look at. This has been my worst performing stock, I believe, so down $17 on Pfizer, or just under 10.5%, or excuse me, just over 10.5%. For the past month, down 10%. That is not good. For the past 3 months, down 3%. Past year, down 14%, and the past 5 years, only up 5%. Just like any other pharmaceutical company, Pfizer's been up and down, and a lot of this could just be sitting on it and waiting for a long-term play. 50% buy rating here on Robinhood. A lot of that has to do with just basically them struggling fairly recently and sell-offs. So the earnings have been all over the place, but they are trending downward, so definitely something to think about. And of course, I'll be watching that earnings call on April 28th. Because this does pay a decent dividend, this says 4.16%. I believe it's actually higher than that right now. But because Pfizer does pay a really good dividend, I am going to continue to watch out for that. It's something to look at for the future. Walmart's an interesting one because I thought it would perform very well. It's been pretty stagnant. So total return here up 89 cents or 0.75%. I was actually down on this for quite a while. If we look at the past month, even we can see it was trading for as low as $114. And as we know, my average cost is $118.84. Past 3 months, we can see this dip. Over the past year, still huge growth. But when we look at 5 years, this is where it gets interesting, up 40% despite this downward trend. I've talked about it before. Target and Walmart are really the only two brick and mortar chains that stand a chance against Amazon and really this e-commerce push that we've seen in the last 5 years. So I think Walmart could definitely be a good buy at the moment, but there's not a ton of room for growth because of the market share they already have and the shrinking of the brick and mortar chain. And really the brick and mortar model in general. It does pay a dividend, not a huge one, but that's always good to see. Their earnings has been up and down, but positive all throughout. So definitely a stock that I'm taking a look at. I'm not sure I'm going to buy any more of it, but definitely going to keep an eye on it. AT&T, of course, I've talked about that quite a few times. I think that's a great stock to buy. regardless of what's going on. Very high dividend. The cell phone industry tends to be fairly consistent. Now, this is the new one that I've talked about, Realty Income. Now, the big reason I like this one is that just like SPHD, it pays a monthly dividend. However, unlike SPHD, it has performed fairly well in the last year, and I think that this one has a little bit less risk involved, which is always great to see. So over the past month, it's up almost 5%. As we can see, I'm actually up 1.7%, and there's only been 2 trading days since I purchased it. So up 3% over the past 3 months. Again, a lot of this has to do with the market being up and down, as opposed to the stock, or the REIT in general. That being said, up 15% on the last year and 55% over the past 5 years. And when you combine that with a dividend yield that's around 3.5%, that is wonderful to see, and those are great numbers. As we can see, it only makes up about 2% of my portfolio right now, but definitely one that I want to continue to purchase, hopefully monthly, to increase that monthly dividend every month at least. So as we can see, 42% buy rating, as I mentioned, only a 5% sell rating. The hold rating, I tend not to really think about or look at too much, but just good to note. Earnings have been extremely consistent for them, and definitely that's an upside to a company like this, or really a REIT like this. And the last one, of course, that we're going to talk about in terms of stocks is going to be Penn. It's my smallest holding at the moment, but of course, I've talked about it. I'm going to buy many, many more shares of this. I am down on this, but of course, with gambling, especially now that they're involved with Barstool Sports, there's a lot of things that can go good. There's a lot of things that can go bad. This is a long-term play, and definitely something that I'm going to continue purchasing, as I said. So down $1.70 on that over the past week. They are down. A lot of that just has to do with it being overbought by crazy Barstool fans. As I mentioned in my Barstool video, if you haven't seen that, of course, go ahead and take a look. But they are up 40% in the last month, which is crazy, 63% in the last 3 months, 50% on the last year, and 120% over the past 5 years. So, of course, where we're at right now, it's clear that it's basically just overbought, and it's going to go downward. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that this is a bad stock. It simply means that it's overbought. But of course, I talk about long-term plays the vast majority of the time, and I think that that's really what this comes down to. They did fall short of their earnings expectation in the last call, which I believe took place last week. I did read some of the summaries on it, and it was not a big deal at all. People were not super concerned. There's a lot of upside here and not a lot of downside, to be honest. Like I said, if you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out. I go into that in a lot more detail. Now, Bitcoin has been, of course, an interesting one, and I do talk about this a ton. I'm sorry if you don't like it, and if you do like it, then you're welcome. Total return on this is up to $20, which is awesome. As I've said before, I was down about 200 on that at one point. So over the past week, it's down 1%, not concerned. 15% on the month, 25% in the last 3 months, and of course, 163% in the last year. I'm only up 3%, and it just stinks because I just continued purchasing as it went up and as it went down. That being said, of course, I predict, and a lot of people predict Bitcoin to outperform the market steadily over the next 2 years. So, not really concerned about that at all. Of course, up 4,200% over the past 5 years. Average cost is down below $10,000, which I love to see. So that's really all I have for you. If you'd like to see anything else, of course, let me know what it is. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you'd like to see next. And I'll be back with more content at the end of the week. Thanks.